Thank you very much for this invitation. I'm very, very happy to present some works of this lab, frame lab, presented from Guyane, from Goa, sorry. Okay. My topic is only a little bit introduction to this focus: digital transition and new engagement opportunities for museums. For the translation, I can wait for the translation, or I can go ahead during my presentation. I didn't understand.
Go ahead, Alessandro. It's you. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Digital transition and new engagement opportunities for museum. We are, and all the people know, we are in a digital scenario. This as an asset, but we are not still in a real digital transition, I think. Why? What is the digital scenario? What is the digital scenario for the museum? We have a great availability of resources, open data, web, internet things. We have a large fruition availability, a public growth with device, mobile, and fixed. And also we have an increase of museum storytelling through methods of digital storytelling. But we are not in a real digital translation. And this is the question, this is my question. What is still missing? What we are waiting for? Other pandemics, I hope no other disasters. We need programming, and programming can go through good in asset political top down, and in public and private bottom down. For a point of view political, we need infrastructures, we need more culture and more digital education. But for a point of view of all the operators of museum, of industry, cultural and creatives, research laboratories, we need projects of storytelling. We need labs collaboration. We need collaboration with research center and museum. And this is the aim, the principal aim of the Frame Lab, involved in various projects of digital storytelling. And so let me now introduce the staff of Frame Lab, staff composed by young researchers, very passionate, very experts, and very good to show some method for this bottom-down digital transition. Please, Arianna.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Arianna Mecozzi. and I'm currently a research fellow of University of Bologna. I'm going to speak about museum and digital storytelling. So, culture as a means of expression and identity plays an important role for society. Access to culture is and remains a central theme. The data available on participation culture show that a significant part of population does not place activities due to several problems. Materials obstacles and immaterial obstacles. Also technological obstacles, such as failure use of ICT to enhance access to the cultural offers. Moreover, the persistence of global pandemic has accentuated it critically. Contemporary museum had to deal with the new vision of knowledge, education, and learning. It is therefore important to remember the role of museums as an educator. Until 2004, the 70% of educational activities in Italian museum were guided tours, often based on the simple transmission of content. As ICOM recalls, the museum is a non-profit permanent institution in the service of society, and its development open to the public, which acquires, conserves, researches, communicates, and exhibits the tangible and intangible heritage of humanity and its environment for the purpose of education, study, and enjoyment. However, museum must create accessible ideas and contents, thus facilitating the approach to cultural difference and promoting the cultural identity of communities. So a museum must communicate it with the community, thus inserting new forms of communication accessible to all types of visitors, near and far. So the museum itinerary must be experienced as a story whose beginning is understood, development, and the end, so that the user experience is clearer and more rewarding. In fact, more and more museums have perceived the need to tell about themselves to allow the visitor to live a more immersive, engaging, and above all usable experience. The answer to this problem is storytelling. Storytelling is a narrative technique consisting in telling stories capable of arousing emotion. The idea of combining storytelling and museum stems from the concept of museum narratives. So storytelling museum is a set of stories. For museums, do storytelling, it means drawing people to a dimension that does not belong to them, creating a story inclusive where everyone can draw up personal lessons. According to Giuliano Gaia, in his review of a conference narrating museums, the story can be true or artistic interpretation, invented or proposed by the visitor themselves, can be told with theatrical animation, settings, written communication, multimedia tools. The first museum to use the storytelling technique was the Metropolitan Museum of Arts of New York in 1917, thanks to educator Anna Curtis Chandler, who expanded the program didactic of the museum through the writing of stories and tales on slides, finding inspiration for museum collection. The Curtis took this program to the Cleveland Museum of Arts in Boston, and the Worcester Art Museum, where she also carried out activities didactics for children, during which tableau presentation of the works were created, original preserved in museum. This type of laboratory methodology causes the public to become the creator of culture. Storytelling has become, over the years, an important tool for the involvement of visitors, and especially for all those museums in which the object of collection are likely to remain dumb, if not adequately valued. With internet, the need to transformation narration in its digital version became evident. Digital storytelling has responded to this need by generating a type of storytelling that makes use of digital tools to create story represented by videos, photos, animated text, audio, or maps. The integration of these tools into the narrative is based on a simple principle, that which word amplifies its meaning when combined with imaging, generating more fluid association and immediate. Digital storytelling was born in United States in 1780s, thanks to Joe Lambert and Anna Ashley, who worked on a digital storytelling project that allowed to the art of becoming more inclusive and accessible. The terms digital storytelling appeared for the first time in a theatrical performance multimedia, was coined by Ashley. In 1994, the two founded, Joe Lambert and Anna Ashley, founded the Center for Digital Storytelling, which would later become a reference point for anyone who devoted himself to this technique of storytelling. Lambert stated that I understand that the mix of digital photography and non-linear editing is an incredible place of experimentation for people, that they can make transformation of this familiar object, photos, movies, artifacts, in a way that animates their relationships with the object themselves. Precisely because this sort of created game is based on story that people want to tell, it can become a transcendent experience. It could therefore be said that the goal of digital storytelling is to convey an emotion and create its story. For the museum today, it becomes a tool and a new form of communication, thanks to which it is possible to enhance the information capital of the exhibit, reinforce the identity of the museum, transmit knowledge over time, and preserve its existence, predicated on an approach on cultural heritage that sees them no longer as static and silent elements, but as a source of interest for involved the public, becoming attractive even for those users who normally would not have benefited for the products and services that museums provide. Thank you.
Okay. Hi everybody, I'm Francesca Fabbri, a PhD student at the Cultural Environment Heritage Department of University of Bologna. And today I will tell you about the status questionis of virtual museums and communication. So, okay. The museum institution has ancient roots and has undergone many evolutions in direct dependence with the change of visitors and society. That change can also be called and identify with the passage from museum as temple to the community museum. Museum as temple means that the focus of the cultural assets is on the aesthetic compliancy of the singular cultural asset. And in the new evolution of museums, the core is on the visitor, and the main objective is that it can be enjoyed from the visitors and understood. I want to start with the methodologic premises and on the meaning of musealization, that is the most important process for the creation of a museum collection. Musealization of cultural heritage is the insertion of a cultural asset in a different context than its original one, generally a museum. But what changes is not only the context, but also the original function of the cultural assets. And that means that cultural assets is undergoes in a double semantic change, the contextualization from the original environment and then the insertion in a new context. So the communicative act has to match the values of the processes. Generally, oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Just someone unmuted. That's okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry if I'm going faster. I will talk slowly. And the Communication Act has sought to dispatch both of these processes. Generally, this type of communication is gave to the analogic communication like targets or panels, but they are not always effective solution to transmit these values. So that's the context in which ECT, informational and communication technology, are useful auxiliary. ECTs helps to create a common language between the cultural assets and the visitors. And also the high rate of interactivity to which new digital technologies give rise allow the visitor to customize the path and make their own. So how to design digital tools for communication of cultural heritage. It's important to start with a strategic and integrated design between content and digital medium. It is necessary that these two aspects are well integrated, since when they are unbalanced, communication fails and it's not very effective. Also, the most important principles in designing digital tool is that it needs to take into account that the digital apparatus is useful when it is an aid for exposed good to communicate the values and contents that which its mere materiality it would not be able to communicate. So from the meeting between ECT and cultural heritage, born virtual museums. That is a word that we usually meet in our quotidianity. And today I present you two of the first definition of what virtual museums are. The first is came from 1998 from Anders and Schweinbitz. And I choose these two because I want to place the emphasis not so much on the digital medium as on the definition of virtuality of the content that comes out of it. Schweinbitz defines virtual museums as, yes, digital, but most of all objects that have the ability to create connections between them, transcending traditional methods of communication and interaction, which do not have a real place or space. Then I insert the quote from Antinucci, who say that the virtual museums is Antinucci define virtual museums as all-around communicative projection of the real museum, again defining a differentiation from the traditional institution. With these two quotes, I want to emphasize the semantic contents and the links that exist in a collection, regardless of the medium in which they occur. The first virtual museums of history is Imaginary Museum of Mondial Sculpture made by André Malraux in 1953. It is with this project, Malraux demonstrates that and with this project take place a new conception of museums as a place where cultural assets makes relationships between them, regardless of these manifestations. In fact, the Imaginary Museums of Malraux wasn't a place to see, and it wasn't neither a gallery, but were three volumes where he collected many photographs of ancient sculpture. Nowadays, we can see common virtual museums like Malraux's museum, that is Google Arts and Culture, where the visitor can enjoy many contents and the cultural assets in different contexts. He can enjoy it in his museum's context, thanks to the digitalization made by Google of many collections, or he can enjoy cultural assets in different contexts, like collections for author or for techniques. That's the contemporary manifestation of what Malraux meant to be a virtual museum. I'm going to finish. There are some open questions about virtual museums, particularly the dialogic relationship with the institution. There are three main scenarios, and the first is a virtual museum without a counterpart in reality, like Google Arts and Project. The second scenario is a virtual museum linked to traditional museum. And the third is on-site equipment inserted in inserted on site inside the museum. And a constant in the creation of virtual museum is the visitor engagement. So the insertion must create a participative communication model in which the user can participate actively to the construction of the meanings. An important project, European project that tried to respond to the many asks of virtual museums is the WUMAST network project. They created a shared taxonomic glossary usable for all virtual museums, regardless of their manifestation. This glossary is made from different categories that are contents, interaction technology, duration, communication, level of immersion, type of distribution, scope, and sustainability. I'm going to finish, and there are two types of application for ECT in the museums, for museums. There are applications on site that must be projected not to substitute the cultural assets, the original cultural assets. Also, the applications must be designed to amplify the visit experience, and the applications may be integrated with different technology systems. The application online have to be a semantic extension of the museum or the collection of reference. So in that way, internet may become an auxiliary tool to narrate what museum can do. In the image, I insert the website of Anna Frank Museum, and on site on internet, the visitor can enjoy different contents beside what he can enjoy on site. So I thank you all, and passo la parola a Marco Cornaglia.
Ես ուզում եմ ասել, եթե կան հարցեր, խնդրում եմ մասնակիցները ուղղեն հարցերը կամ գրեն չաթում, որպեսզի ես կարդամ հետո։
Good evening and welcome everyone. I'm Marco Cornaglia and I'm currently a PhD student at the Frame Lab of the University of Bologna. My specialization here at the Frame Lab is using the GIS tool. That is the tools we use to digitalize a geographical context and to insert precise historical elements inside of a digital map. Now, during the last years, the Frame Lab has worked on the realization of a digital map based on the activity of Giovanni Francesco Barbieri, the artist better known as Guercino. Guercino has been one of the most important artists in the Baroque era of European art, and his influence on European art has been very strong and very lasting. Now, the activity of this particular artist was spread in all of Italy, in Rome, for example, in Bologna, but in particular, it was the town of Cento in northern Italy, the hometown of Guercino, who hosts even nowadays many of the artworks related to the activity of this particular artist. Still nowadays, many museums, galleries, and churches in Cento host the paintings and frescoes executed by either Guercino or the artists of his school. Exactly nine years ago, the town of Cento was struck by an earthquake. Many historical buildings and many churches were severely damaged from the earthquake, and even also many artworks executed by Guercino have been damaged. And the restoration operations are still ongoing nowadays. This represents a particularly interesting example of how the digital world can come to aid of the museums, since especially nowadays with the unfortunately still ongoing pandemics, has been raised the matter of how to view at a safe distance the historical heritage and the artworks of museums that we can no longer view every day. Now, another effect of this earthquake, an unexpected effect, was the fact that many frescoes executed by Guercino and that have been hidden for centuries have been discovered recently with the works of consolidation and restoration of the buildings damaged by the earthquake. So another unexpected effect of this disaster is that now many paintings and frescoes created and executed by Guercino, who has long been hidden, can be revealed to the viewers, and plus many of these frescoes and artworks are still hidden and can be viewed by the users who still visit Cento. So we can, through the digital, make these paintings, these artworks available to the viewers. More in particular, the Frame Lab of Bologna, with the help of GetCo, has created a digital app who presents a digital map of the city of Cento and all those places, those points of interest, somehow related to the activity of Guercino. Furthermore, this particular app presents the city of Cento and is provided with the possibility to switch from the visualization of a digital map of the city, with a visualization of an historical map from the Papal Land Registry of the 17th century. So luckily, the city of Cento has remained particularly untouched by time through the centuries. So many of the buildings from the age of Guercino, from the 17th century, are still standing. By switching from a digital map to an historical map, the viewer can confront the present situation of Cento with the past situation of the age of Guercino himself. Now, this digital map is also provided with a list of story maps. They are applications who allow to view a narration of all the single points of interest of the city of Cento, all those churches, manors, and galleries somehow related to the activity of Guercino. This town, after all, still hosts Guercino home and the workshop where he started his activity. There are still many churches hosting the artworks of Guercino, and many noble manors who also other artworks somehow related to the artist and his school. Now, these story maps have been created by the work of many scholars and from an historical search of documents, the interpretation of the single artworks. So it's a work who aims to present to the viewer the broader amount of information, historical, artistic, and cultural information related to Guercino and the cultural heritage of the city of Cento. Now, this is an example of the story maps we have created and set on our digital map. So in this case, you can see one of the churches in Cento. In this case, it's the Chiesa del Rosario. It is the Rosary Church. This church was decorated by Guercino and his apprentices. And as you can see, it still has many works from the Baroque era, Luckily, they were relatively untouched by the recent earthquake. And in our story map, you can see many insights regarding Guercino's story as related to this particular church, the story of the church. You can see here, for example, on the left, frontal prospect of the church. And there are many other historical data related somehow to the story of this particular building. A story map allows the viewer to appreciate fully through many data the complete history of a particular cultural heritage. And as I already said, this is particularly useful in this case where many buildings and palaces have been damaged from the earthquake. Now, it is possible to insert inside a story map not only images, of course, but also many other data. For example, three-dimensional reconstructions, or like in this case, a video who describes a particular aspect of the church. In this case, the main frescoes hosted in the nave of the Church of the Rosary. I'm not sure about how many time I steal from my speech, but if I can, I would like to show you here we are, an example of how we insert our... I'm sorry?
You have time.
Really? Oh, thank you. So you can see here an example of the many videos we have inserted inside or in our story map. So briefly, we have, first of all, individuated all the points of interest related to Guercino, the Baroque period, and the past history of Cento. We have inserted them inside our digital map. We have provided this digital map with an example of an historical 17th century map. And each point of interest, as you can see, was provided with a story map and a descriptive video about this particular point of interest. The idea was to provide the viewers with the broadest possible amount of information of different kinds, both text, images, videos, describing the history of this church. Of course, this is an example of a process that can be repeated with any kind of cultural heritage, any kind of building area or archaeological site. The idea is to provide the users always with the means to study a particular kind of historical heritage, even from a certain distance, even if the original piece of historical heritage was damaged or can be viewed for some reason. So it is another way to translate the museum, or like in this case, many museums, many historical buildings, or an entire town, from the material plane to the digital one. So thank you for your attention. Now I leave space to my colleague. Here we are.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Giulia Cardoni, and I am a PhD student.
Sorry.
I'm a PhD at the University of Bologna. Today I will talk you about the virtual tour of Gubbio Studiolo, a building in Gubbio, a city of Umbria in the middle Italy. We are talking about a little space in the Palazzo Ducale of Gubbio, reserved to the study and the meditation of Federico da Montefeltro, an important character of the Renaissance period in Italy. This little room is full of symbols related to Federico da Montefeltro. And only few people chosen by the Duke could enter in this room. This room is called Studiolo and is a typical ambience, a typical room of the Italian aristocratic buildings in Renaissance. In Gubbio, in this Palazzo Ducale, there is a studiolo similar to another one owned always by the Duke. And it's similar both for shape and content. And this other studiolo is in Urbino, in the Palazzo Ducale of Urbino. In the Palazzo Ducale of Gubbio, the studiolo was originally formed by painters and inlaid woodwork. The painters lived the studiolo in the early 18th century, and meanwhile the inlaid woodwork was removed at the end of the 19th century, and then in 1939 was sold to the Metropolitan Museum of New York. And in 2009, we have in the Palazzo Ducale of Gubbio, it was settled copy of the studiolo made by the local artisans. Our virtual reconstruction project wants to put together again, and ideally, the place and its furnitures through a digital storytelling tools, rich of contents, and through a virtual path inside the Palazzo Ducale, using a video narration and an interactive video tour. The first step to make this was the research and the study. Above all, the bibliographic research and also the iconographic one. Above all, the music iconographic study. Because this studiolo is full of image related to the life and values of Federico da Montefeltro, mostly music instruments, scientific instruments, books, and symbols. And we made also, in the first phase of the study, lots of meetings and interviews with the local artisans, which work with the inlaid woodwork to know how the studiolo was made. And these interviews are also online in our website that we talk later. We made an important photographic campaign at the Metropolitan Museum of New York to put together video and photographic material, which will be the basis for our virtual tour. The second step was the work phase. Thanks to the Politecnico of Torino University, we had lots of high-definition laser scanner reliefs. And with this material, it was possible to do a 3D dimensional reconstruction of the old palazzo, the old palace, but above all of the studiolo. We put together the high resolution image with this 3D model thanks to the Blender software. And then we unrolled the model, the 3D model. So we had an equirectangular image. This kind of image is such as parchment unrolled, in which one we could put some hotspot. The hotspots are information points in which we put information about the history, the iconography, the music of the court of Federico da Montefeltro. Also with Blender, we wrap this model, and so we have an ambience, a room, a 3D room that now is questionable, is searchable. And we made this with a software called Color Panotour, but this software made only model constructed in Flash. We know that now Flash is not more available, so the model was made also in a 3D Vista software. And so we have now a model in HTML5. Okay. Inside the Palazzo Ducale of Gubbio, there were two workstations. One inside the studiolo with the video narration about the history and of this room and all the events about the inlaid woodwork. And in the deductive room of the palace, there is a workstation, a touch screen with the virtual tour where visitors can interact with the room and search the material inside this kind of icons. There are different type of icons because inside there are different kind of materials. We have more than 1 hour of audiovisual material inside this hotspot. And I would like to focus on the reconstruction of the Renaissance musical instrument, because we made a lot of attention of the musicology panorama of Federico da Montefeltro, and it was possible with a sound dome system put above the touch screen that is useful to put the visitor more over the ambience. Is an immersion way to listen the music of the Federico da Montefeltro court. We recorded in the Palazzo Ducale of Gubbio some of the soundtrack that we know that were played in the Federico da Montefeltro court. And it was possible thanks to the ensemble Micrologus, which played with reconstructed musical instrument, this soundtrack. And the instruments were reconstructed based on the inlaid woodworks inside the studiolo. At least we made a website where you can see the backstage, the background of our work, partners, and the history of Palazzo Ducale. and also a preview of our virtual tour. This in particular is the interactive map made in Blender with some hotspot and pop-up with images and history of the entire palace. The main idea of the web was to go deeper into the things that you cannot find in the real tour. This because the site has a double function. First, you can visit the Studiolo and the palace by remote. And second is a useful support of the visit and also an enrichment of information. Also because the site was optimized for mobile and smartphone and tablet tools. Our main aim was to translate our research in a form that is simple, interactive, effective, but that at the same time doesn't put down the original informative potential. So with the material processed in digital form, we have reshaped the Studiolo in its digital form. Thank you. Now, thank you.
Giulia, per favore un attimo. We have question. Ինչպես մասնակիցը հասնիկների ջանյանը գրել է, ինչպես կարող են վիրտուալ այցելել ներկայացվող թանգարանը։
Do we have the translations?
How can I visit the museum that you have presented?
Okay, here is the link of our website. The preview is this link, just a second, this one. May I open? Yeah. Just a second. No, okay. You can find it at patrimonioculturale.unibo.it/Gubbio anteprima. It's okay.
If you can write
yeah, sure.
in chat. Thank you. And we have another question, I think for Marco.
Yes. Just
is here. How do you make this up? Marco, go on.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello. Marco, per favore, spostati un po' indietro così vediamo la tua faccia, non ti vediamo. Ok, grazie. Perché tutti dicono che la tua presentazione è interessante ma non ti vedono. Okay, the question is, how do you make this application popular among tourists and tourists in general?
I'm sorry?
And what kind of cooperation do you have with the city hall of Cento?
I'm sorry, but
Go ahead, Jan. May I help you? So how do you make this application popular among tourists in general? The application that you have created, and what kind of cooperation?
Can you, Marco,
well,
potresti per favore
yes, I have understood the question.
Okay.
So as for how we made popular this particular application, first of all, we took advantage of the inauguration of this application in Cento. That was, I think, 1 year ago, and we showed this application to the people of Cento, and that was our first approach to personally show what we could do for the town. As for how currently we share this application, we use iOS and Google Store. It is perfectly possible to download this application from Google Store. Plus, the links to the application and the story maps are available on the site of the FrameLab. Do you
collaborate with the municipality of Cento? There was also this question.
Yes, we were requested to create this application for the municipality of Cento, and we worked together with art historians, archaeologists, many different scholars in order to create this app and to make it fully available and historically precise, reliable.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
If you have any other questions.
Marco in Alharce, can we contact the speaker for further questions? Yes, how can we contact? Yes, hi.
So can you leave your contacts, Marco?
Marco, tu hai la traduzione. Quando noi parliamo in armeno tu puoi sentire la traduzione.
Grazie.
Per favore, noi ora... Stefmenk, Madam Anglerena, grazie. How can I contact the speaker for further questions? I've missed this contact info.
Very well. For our personal contacts, we will be glad to leave them in the chat at the end of the presentation. I was under the impression that our contacts were requested, and I can understand, of course. We'll be glad to leave the contacts, our personal contacts, and the links of our works. For example, the virtual tour of the Studiolo of Gubbio, or the link for the application of Cento. All of these works will be available on the site of the FrameLab. Of course, we will leave this particular link, but at the end of the conference, we will leave a list, complete list of all the links to our works. And of course, of those who worked at the creation of these works. Do you have any further question regarding the application of Cento?
Very much. Ska բայց Ջուլիային հարցկա, չէ, դոյ վերաբերյալ այս բանի ոնց որ մենք հարցում ենք, հաջորդ Ջուլիային, magari c'è una domanda per Giulia.
Of course, here we are.
Եթե քաղաքից մոտենում եք, մոնումենտը անցնում եք ու այդտեղ վայրենկոմատը գիտեք։
Giulia, tu senti la traduzione in inglese? Sì, ok. Ուրեմն նախ շնորհակալություն Տիկին Պիկիչյանից հարցը կարծում եմ ավելի ընկալելի կլիներ հենց տեղում միանալ հավելվածին եւ պրակտիկ ներկայացնել հնարավորությունները խոսքը երաժշտական ստուդիոլոյի մասին է Giulia,
yes.
Giulia, tu hai ascoltato la traduzione, la domanda, la traduzione della domanda?
No, ho sentito solamente l'armeno.
L'armeno, perché tu devi accedere all'inglese, dove c'è lì sotto c'è la traduzione simultanea. C'è French and English.
Ok, in inglese, giusto?
In inglese.
Ok. Yes, sure.
Ok, grazie. Georgian, կարող ես թարգմանել։
Yeah, you switch, now I switch in English. Yeah, now sorry. Okay, what was the first question?
Վերջ։
The presentation at the presentation day, the workstation was on. So we made this in the didactic room, right? In the didactic room, and then we showed the our website. And we showed also at the visitors how to use the touchscreen workstation, and also we presented the video narration workstation inside the Studiolo. We don't make this during the walking through the palace, but just in the nearby the workstation. Yeah, of course. Manuela told me that, yeah, also the tour guide inside the Palazzo Ducale are, knows how to use the workstation. We learn also to the guided tour. I hope I've answered the question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Julia. Another question. Ինչ նշանակություն ունեն լյուտնյաները, լարային նվագարանները գլխիվայր ներկայացնելը։
What do you mean for upside down? Sorry. Yeah, because in the the virtual tour is a 360 degree. If you want, I can open this one. I don't know la cosa. Just a second. And just a second, I can't share the screen. Okay, sorry. Okay, do you mean this one? Can you see it? Okay.
Այո, հենց դրանց մասին է, շնորհակալություն։
Okay. Oh, sorry. Can you hear the music also?
Yes, yes. Yes.
Okay. Oh, sorry. This one, for example, was a reconstruction of the lute. We also, for the icon, we use this lute. We put it upside down and we use it as an icon because this was the main musical instrument of the Federico da Montefeltro court. And okay. If you want to see, I don't know, the law. We have also this part. This about the Eneide.
Biblioteca Vaticana. Tra questi, un volume contenente l'Eneide di Virgilio, il testo più diffuso dell'epoca come modello non solo letterario, ma soprattutto delle virtù politiche, morali e militari del principe. Il libro è aperto sull'episodio più significativo del 10° canto, la commovente morte del principe Pallante per mano di Turno, il re dei Rutuli.
This one, for example, was about the library of Federico da Montefeltro. And I don't know if you want to see something else, because we have also Manuela that will talk about another studiolo in Italy, and also another virtual tour if you want to see other examples. I don't know if I answered the question.
Մասամ։
Եթե էլի հարցեր ունեք, Տիկին Պիկիչյան, խնդրեմ։
Ճիշտ ասած, ուզում էի հասկանալ, բոլոր նվագարանները ճիշտ են դրված, բայց լուտնյաները հակառակ գլխի վար։ Ուզում էի հասկանալ ինչ-որ նշանակություն, տրամաբանություն կա, թե պատահական է կամ ինչ-որ դիզայնի տեղի խնդիր է։ Շնորհակալ եմ։
Yeah, sure. Not for the upside down instrument. It was just because the inhale woodwork represents were similar to the simple room with furnitures. So it was like the Duke wanted to put the instruments inside his furniture. I don't know. So
Շնորհակալություն։ Հասկացա։
Մեկ ուրիշ հարց Անի Եղիազարյանից, ինչ մասնագիտական խումբ է աշխատել վիրտուալ շրջայցը իրականացնելու համար եւ մոտավորապես որքան է կազմել բյուջեն։
Okay. 25,000 euros to reconstruct to make this virtual tour. And we worked together with professor of musical iconography, with research, with historical researchers, and also with I don't know how to say in English, con design, graphic also. And also with the University of Torino, the Politecnico of Torino, for the laser scanner reliefs. Do you have?
Thank you, Julia. Another question. Կներեք իսկ վիրտուալ այցելության համար վճարում են։
The virtual tour, the entire virtual tour is inside the Palazzo Ducale. So you have to pay the ticket to enter the Palazzo Ducale. But online in our website, we have this preview. We have some hotspot put here. No. They pay just the museum ticket, but the virtual tour, the workstations are inside the Palazzo Ducale, inside the museum. May I leave the speech to Manuela De Vivo for another virtual tour? Are you curious to see another virtual tour?
Another question.
Okay.
We have another.
Okay, don't worry.
Բոլոր նվագարանների ձայնագրությունները հնարավոր է լսել յուրաքանչյուր ձայնագրությունների յուրաքանչյուր նվագարանից քանի ձայնագրություն է տեղադրված կայքում։
Okay. In the virtual tour inside the Palazzo Ducale, all the instruments are available. We have a hotspot for each instrument. In our preview, there are just, I think, just two in the preview. In this preview, and I think we made a lot of recordings. Okay, just one for each instrument in the final work. Each instrument has one soundtrack, recorded soundtrack, in the virtual tour inside the Palazzo Ducale. The soundtracks are about Renaissance music of the house of Federico da Montefeltro.
Խնդրում են այստեղ վիրտուալ շրջայցի լինքը տեղադրել, եթե կարելի է չաթում։
Yes. Oh, sorry. Okay, this is the link for the preview of the virtual tour that is in our website. I don't know if you can see in the chat. I put it in the chat. You're welcome. Ricondivido lo schermo.
Ho presto enough on the thing. Thank you, Giulia. Grazie mille. Այստեղ չաթում բոլորը շնորհակալություն են հայտնում հետաքրքիր գաղափարների համար, գնաց։ Ու չի լսում երևի։ Manuela, volevo ringraziare, cioè dicevo che tutti in chat ringraziano Giulia per aver risposto alle domande e per le idee che ha dato. Grazie.
You're welcome. Okay, can I continue with another project, or do you have other questions about Gubbio Studiolo? Can I continue?
No, you can continue.
Yeah, okay. I am Manuela, and I am also a PhD student of University of Bologna, and I work in the Frame Lab with the other guys. And I'm going to talk to you about Belfiore Studiolo. That is another kind of project of reconstruction of Studiolo that was so different from, I'm sorry, I'm going to show you. Okay. It's different from Gubbio Studiolo because we don't have Fiscal Studiolo now in Firenze, in Ferrara, sorry. But we have just sources and humanistic testimonies about and this was a project with the Gallerie Estensi of Ferrara. That is a museum where there are two of the paintings that were inside the Studiolo of Belfiore. We know just few things about this kind of Studiolo. We know that he was in the Delizia of Belfiore. That was a palace where Leonello d'Este, a Renaissance or a king of Renaissance age, he was going to relaxing, and it was a place for entertainment of Leonello d'Este. And the Delizia, we call this palace Delizia, was built by Alberto IV, and Leonello then built the Studiolo inside this kind of palace. The palace was outside the city wall. That during the Leonello when Leonello lived, the walls of the city were here. Now it's Corso della Giovecca in Ferrara. And then with Ercole d'Este, the city walls were going to build, including the Delizia of Belfiore. Other thing that we know about the Studiolo is that there were six paintings about muses
that were projected by Guarino Veronese, that was a humanist of Renaissance age, Italian Renaissance age. And we don't know other things. We don't have other data. We just wrote some data about the measures of the studiolo, and we tried to have a reconstruction of the structure. But we saw that was not realistic because the room was really so big and was so different from Gubbio Studiolo. And but we know that all the studiolos of the Renaissance Studiolo in Italy were so similar to Gubbio Studiolo. And for this, the museums decided to don't reconstruct all the room, but to have just one wall where we put all the paintings. With the studiolo was not in good condition during the Ercole d'Este rain. And they lost the windows and all the wood walls that were inside the studiolo. And we don't know anything about this. This is just a proposal of reconstruction. For the paintings, we know that there were 6 paintings because we have a letter from Guarino Veronese to Leonello d'Este. That's where he described these paintings. But now we have in Ferrara just these 2 paintings. All the other one are in other museums in Europe. For example, this one is in Berlin and this one is in London. We tried to put inside this virtual tour and give to visitors of museums some information about these paintings and their lives. Okay, this is the tour that you can see in the Museum of Ferrara, and you can see also in the on our website, because we built a virtual tour and website too, like for Gubbio Studiolo. The website is full of content about the history of Belfiore Palace and Belfiore Studiolo and other things about the Renaissance age. Inside this, the website, you can visit the virtual tour. It's only in Italian, but you can see all the content. There are some. Can I show you the virtual tour? I have some time.
Կազմակերպենք, գուցե կազմակերպենք շրջայցը։
Okay, I try to open.
Manuela.
Yes. Okay, I would be shorter.
Լսվեց, անմութեի լսվեց, որ ասեցի շրջայցը կազմակերպում։ Emanuela, non so se hai ascoltato, hai sentito, sì, magari organizziamo il tour.
Ok.
Grazie.
Yeah. This is a virtual tour. There are all the paintings and a wall. This is a proposal of reconstruction. And we put all the muses. This is not a real order because we don't know it, but we the scope of this tour is just to know something about the muses and the studiolo. The information about the studiolo are there where you can see something about the palace, something about Studiolo, and something about the building place. Here there are some information that is textual and with some images. And here there is a video about the Studiolo, and here there are other images. But I know we don't have many times, and if I can show you a video, I want to show you a video from the Muse, because it was a really hard work to have a lot of information about that, and we made a video for each muse. Can I show you a video? We have time. It's about 2 minutes.
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay.
Sure. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. And this video, this virtual tour is in a museum like Studiolo of Gubbio with a touch screen, where users can go there, visitors can go there and see all the content the virtual tool. And the last part of the project was a game that we built for the children. We thought that was so important to explain to them the importance of music and the history of music, in particular that they are all around Europe. They are not in Ferrara, all of them. And we tried to build this game where they can touch the music, the painting, and they can put the paint in the right museum. We don't have an app for this because it was at the end of the project, and it was just an experiment that we have with a class of children. And these are our contacts.